21 of the Army's toughest mountaineers are preparing to climb Everest the hard way. Their aim is to become the first British team ever to climb the notoriously difficult and deadly West Ridge all the way to the top. On this treacherous route, they'll have to battle 150-mile-an-hour winds, freezing temperatures and sheer cliffs of ice, while their bodies self-destruct from the extreme altitude. Of the 2,219 people who've summited Everest, only 19 have ever made it via the West Ridge, and 21 have died trying. In the expedition's 5th week, the Army finally makes it onto the West Ridge, but the altitude really starts to hurt.
Just don't want to quit.
And team leader Dave Bunting has to choose which climbers are going to go all the way to the top.
There's a lot of people want to go to the summit, and we will not be able to fit that in to our plan.
24 days after arriving at base camp, the Army have finally established Camp 3. Between here and the record books lies a straight slog for 1.5 kilometers along the knife-edged ridge, buffeted by the ferocious winds of the jet stream. There's a drop of 1.5 kilometers down either side as well. One slip here could be fatal. The expedition is employing siege tactics. They've divided up into 4 teams of climbers, and while one team takes its turn pushing the ropes out at the front, the others work lower down, carrying rope, food and supplies up from one camp to the next. At 8,848 meters above sea level, the lack of oxygen and the freezing temperatures mean the summit of Everest is at the very limit of a human being's capacity to survive. Leading the expedition from the front is the Army's most experienced Himalayan mountaineer, Dave Bunting. With him is expedition doctor Malcolm Russell and Sean Phillips, who spent 15 years in the Paras. Their day begins at dawn at Camp 3, 4.5 miles above sea level.
How you doing, Dave?
Not too bad.
Okay.
Freezing feet, headache. Could be worse.
Could be worse. Could be a lot better. However, all you need to do is stick your head out the tent and get a load of the view. Look at that. Awesome.
Above 7,000 meters, the effect of altitude really begins to show. High-altitude coughs are something of an occupational hazard for mountaineers, but on Everest they can get so bad that climbers cough up bits of throat tissue.
This is amazing! Near the top of the French spur. Feeling good apart from this daft cough. Absolutely awesome.
Stepping onto the West Ridge at last, the lead team look over into Nepal for the first time.
Made it finally up onto the West Ridge. What a absolutely spectacular place. After all the hard work that we put in with the load carrying, never thought we'd actually make it to the front of the rope, and hopefully we're pushing out towards Camp 4 today.
Between Camp 3 at the start of the West Ridge and Camp 4 at the far end, the mountain rises to 7,600 meters above sea level and into what is known as the death zone. Up here, no one ever properly acclimatizes, and it's impossible to stay at these heights for more than a few days. The stomach stops digesting food, the heart stops pumping blood to the fingers and toes, and the brain goes into meltdown. From now on, all the climbers will have to prove how well they can cope with the extreme altitude, as ultimately only the 9 fittest will be chosen to go all the way to the summit. After 6 hours on the ridge, Malcolm, the doctor, is at the back and struggling. At this height, there is less than half the oxygen there is at sea level. To compensate, climbers' heart rates accelerate to around 140 beats per minute, twice the normal resting rate for an average healthy male.
Can't speak. I'm at 7,425 meters. And I'm absolutely bollocks. I'm not the sort of person normally gives up. My head's aching. My face is tingling. I don't know if it's just the start of AMS or I think I'm probably just too tired. I've got to get down as well. Just don't want to quit.
Although they're still short of Camp 4, Dave decides it's time to turn round, and they all stagger back to the relative comforts of Camp 3.
Cook. Stove, 2 full. Yeah. Check.
With temperatures at night falling to -15 and the lack of oxygen making sleep difficult, after just a few nights at this height, the body starts showing serious signs of decay.
I am struggling to breathe.
The next morning, Dave Bunting decides it's time his team made way for another. The relief arrives in the shape of Team C, led by Dick Gale, an experienced solo mountaineer, and Dave Wilson, the expedition's second-in-command. Assisted by a small team of Sherpas, they take their turn to lead the way across the West Ridge, looking to establish Camp 4.
What a spot.
What's going through your mind now, Dick?
Too many routes, not enough time. It's stunning, isn't it?
The true mountaineer.
Stunning.
But Dave Wilson is not finding the views from the ridge quite so inspirational.
I feel fucked.
And as Dick and the Sherpas push on towards Camp 4, Dave, like Malcolm the day before, falls behind.
I'm just moving pitifully slowly. I've really sadly let Dick down. Hopefully the Sherpas will be able to wield the snow shovel more efficiently than me anyway, and at least get one tent in.
It's impossible to predict how the altitude will affect people, but the West Ridge is sorting the men from the boys. Only those who can cope up here will be picked for the summit teams. At the front, Dick succeeds where the others have failed, and with 2 Sherpas puts the first tents into Camp 4.
It's gone very, very well, but we've got the foreground of Everest, and there's not a great deal behind that, so fingers crossed we're in a good position for the summit bid in a couple of weeks.
For the next 5 days, all the other climbing teams carry loads up the West Ridge to stock Camp 4 with food and rope. Finally, 6 weeks after the expedition arrived on Everest, everything is in place for the summit bid to begin. Dave Bunting calls everyone down off the hill to announce who's made it into the 2 teams that will go all the way to the top.
You know, geared with how you've performed.
Yeah.
And your personal aspirations.
Yeah.
What are you up for?
Quite simply, I would like to stand on the summit.
I'd love to have a crack at the summit.
I'd like to go to the top.
I feel that I'm physically and mentally prepared to go to the summit.
I want to go to the top. I want to stand on top. Summit.
You're up for the top here.
Fucking right.
Big time.
Yeah.
I'll look at the
Everyone seems up for it except one. Dave's best mate from school, Woody.
What am I up for?
Yeah. What about the summit?
No, if I'm on a summit team, I'm happy to be in one. Oh, well, so I'm happy to be in one. I'm not happy to be on the upper part of the mountain on roped.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Why?
3/4 of the team are mountaineers, mate.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm a pilot.
Woody is being modest. So far, he's been one of the strongest climbers on the mountain. Clearly, he has something else on his mind. Immediately after the expedition ends, he's due back in Derbyshire to marry his fiancée Mel.
When we get married in July, we'll have known each other maybe in July about 14 months, 15 months.
Yeah, but I think anyone. I mean, if I was a younger person doing this, you know, I'm 38 soon, although I look a lot younger. Then I would be perhaps a little bit more sceptical. But it's not like it's my first relationship, and certainly not for Mel, who's obviously been around the block a few times.
No, I haven't. But and Lee's been waiting. You've been waiting, haven't you? And waiting for the right one to come along, and here I am. He's even got tears coming down his face.
It's because it's so cold.
Even without Woody, there's still 20 climbers going for only 9 summit team places.
Because we've got so many people who are mega motivated, so many people that are in good nick, it's going to be impossible to meet everybody's aspirations. That's fact. So what we're going to do is John's going to read out the plan of the teams that's going to go up the hill, and that plan's going to start as of tomorrow.
The first team up the hill will be Support Team 1, who will carry supplies and clear the ropes, but only up as far as Camp 4.
First team is Support 1, head up by Ian Rivers, Al, Jude and Malcolm Russell.
When the decision was announced, you know, I was devastated because obviously that to me was any chance of a summit bid was taken away from me.
Second team to deploy would be the Diagonal Ditch team.
The Diagonal Ditch team have a crucial role in the whole summit bid, establishing Camp 5 at 8,000 metres, but they will go no further.
That's headed up by Andy Nelson, Dave Wilson, Woody and Dave Elsley.
Initially I was really upset. I hadn't even contemplated not being picked for the summit team.
The Hornby Kilwar team itself.
The first of the 2 summit teams will fix ropes up the couloir above Camp 5 and go on to the summit if they have the energy and the time.
That's going to be my team with myself, Chids, Guy and Frankie Francis. A dedicated summit team.
Summit Team 2 will follow Summit Team 1 and have a clear run at the top.
Dave Bunting, Dick Gale, Brush, Sean Phillips and Ven.
Which leaves just 3, who will form the second support team and be based at Camp 1, only going up the mountain if the summiteers need help getting down.
Support 2, Marty Sellers, John Joel, Rab, those 3.
It's a long way to come without going to the summit, but there you go. It's being part of a team.
Obviously, from a personal point of view, very pleased indeed. And you can see people who maybe not quite so happy as we are, but I think after a couple of minutes and a cup of tea and we'll all get together and we'll give it a really good go during that weather window.
Coming up, heavy snow causes unexpected problems for the summit teams, and the deadly West Ridge claims its first victims. The Army's mission to become the first Brits ever to climb Everest via the West Ridge has reached its critical phase. The 9 climbers who will go to the summit have been chosen, and the big push is about to begin. After 3 years of planning and 6 weeks on the mountain, in just 6 days' time, they should be standing on the top.
That's what we're looking for. That's it.
The 5 new climbing teams will leave Tillman's base camp a day at a time. First off is Support Team 1, led by Ian Rivers. Their priority is to carry yet more essential supplies up to Camp 4, but as the Sherpas are being saved for the summit teams, they're carrying enormous loads. Normally it takes a day to climb from one camp to the next, so it should be 4 days to Camp 4. But the heavy snow has buried the ropes, and as they climb higher, they begin to struggle.
Probably only a third of the way through the track field. Extremely hard going. I have to dig all the ropes out, it was a good 2-3 foot buried.
And every footstep you take, you get down to about thigh deep. However, that's our job, so we just got to get on with it.
The conditions are so bad that they begin to fall behind schedule, but the heavy snow is not their only problem. Support Team 1 suffer the first casualty of the expedition.
I got some sort of injury. It was more like a nerve pain that was coming up here. It was excruciating, so I was pretty much stuffed then. And it was just really bad timing.
Jude's Everest expedition is over, and her place at the front has been taken by Marty Sellers, who's previously only been up as high as Camp 3.
So Marty, onto the West Ridge at last.
Yeah.
First impressions?
Oh, it's beautiful, mate. Absolutely stunning. Top of the world. Well, nearly.
By the 5th day, they've fallen a day behind schedule and are now holding up the other summit teams following them up the mountain. And halfway along the West Ridge towards Camp 4, they start wading through thigh-deep powder.
Marty, would you care to comment on the last little bit there, mate?
Yeah, not a bad little stretch there, mate. You know, got the legs going, got the blood pumping. Hanging out of my arse.
Also putting a brave face on is climbing partner Al Mason.
It was absolute nightmare. And we've still got an hour and a half, 2 hours to go, and we're all completely fucked.
But 2.5 hours turns to 5, and it takes the team a full 11 hours to cross the West Ridge and get in to Camp 4. Al Mason, though, has fallen behind and is now out on the West Ridge all alone.
It is Pete here, mate. Just look through the telescope. Al's probably about 150 metres short of Camp 4 at the moment. It's still moving, mate, just moving slowly, that's all, mate.
But as the sun goes down, Al still hasn't made it into camp. The temperature is now plummeting towards -25, and if his core body temperature drops too far, there's a very real danger he'll develop hypothermia, collapse on the ridge, and die of exposure.
Can you see me yet, mate?
No, I think Mark's just going to walk round the ridge, just to look along it, mate, and see if he's there.
Already utterly exhausted, Marty is endangering his own safety by going back out in the dark to look for Al. Down at Tillman's, Pete Longbottom waits anxiously for news.
Malcolm, please let me know we've got Al with us. He's in an absolute clip. However, no serious medical problems and we're all safe, over.
I'm glad he's alright, mate. If you've got any problems, just let me know, mate.
Thanks for that. Out for now.
Next morning up at Camp 4, Support Team 1's work is done. But having fallen behind schedule, there is now a bottleneck of climbers on the mountain, and they must immediately make way for the climbing teams coming up behind them.
Ian, how are you feeling about going down? We haven't really recovered, but we've got to make room for bed spaces so the summit bid can continue.
With no spare bed spaces on the mountain, the team need to make it all the way back down to Camp 1, 7 gruelling hours below.
As Support Team 1 head down, they come across the legendary Diagonal Ditch team on their way up. Woody and Dave Elsley leading from the front, and they look in fine form.
Good to see you, mate.
You too.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Good form.
Yeah, you look well.
I'm well, mate, yeah. Alright.
Yeah.
And the rest of the team working their way up slowly.
Yeah, we've got 4 Sherpas who have got comedy loads, lots of oxygen, and they're topping up with rope on the way. Nelly down the bottom, who's doing fine. Dave Wilson is AWOL, and I'm a little concerned.
But as Support Team 1 carry on down the knife-edged ridge, things begin to go wrong. Marty, already exhausted from rescuing Al the night before, has come down with diarrhea and is dangerously dehydrated and becoming disorientated.
Marty's been a bit ill. We've taken as much care as he'll let us take off him. He didn't want us to take anything. He won't be able to go further than Camp 3 tonight, which will affect the various logistics.
Unable to walk down unassisted, 2 Sherpas are sent up from Camp 3 to help bring Marty down.
Met up with Nima, Sherpa. He's taking Marty's pack, so we should be at Camp 3 about 20 minutes over.
Fantastic. How's Marty? Is he okay, mate?
Yeah, apart from his hallucinations, mate, yeah.
Above 7,000 metres, the lack of oxygen starves the brain, and hallucinations on Everest are frighteningly common. Just a few days earlier, on the other side of the mountain, Australian climber Lincoln Hall was found at 8,700 metres, sitting on the very edge of a 10,000-foot drop, taking his jacket and shirt off, convinced he was on a boat and preparing to dive into the deep blue sea below him. Descending from the summit, he had collapsed and been left for dead by his Sherpas. But American climber Dan Mazier and his team gave up their summit bids to get him down the mountain. Even though there are no spare beds there, Doc Malcolm Russell orders Marty to stay at Camp 3 for the night, while he and the rest of Support Team 1 carry on down. 5 hours later, a full 13 hours after they set off from Camp 4, they stagger into Camp 1.
Pete, just to say that Malcolm, Ian Rivers and Al Mason are back here now, just arrived safe and sound.
Back at Camp 1, over.
Thanks for that, John Joe. Just be aware that
Marty's on the way down with Laurie, mate.
It's an interesting decision this time of night.
When they left him at Camp 3, Marty didn't even know where he was. Far less looked like he could make it all the way back down in the dark. But now he's suddenly decided to descend with one of the Sherpas. While his teammates restock and rehydrate, Jonjo and Rab prepare for a rescue mission. Then, after 3 hours of radio silence, an extra dinner guest arrives out of the night. Delirious, dehydrated, and defying doctor's orders, Marty has made it all the way down from Camp 3.
You're a bad lad, Marty.
I don't remember anything past Dave Wilson.
You're delusional. You didn't know who Al was. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Frankie's bruised did it, mate.
Good.
And in fact, the guy had to sleep in the stores tent in his rub suit, mate. There's no way I'd let him have that.
Determined not to take up a vital bed space and interrupt the summit bid, Marty has taken an enormous risk. But the drop in altitude will ensure he suffers no long-term ill effects from his collapse on the mountain. For the next 2 days, the Diagonal Ditch team and their 4 Sherpas break trail across one of the most treacherous sections of the whole route, carrying tents and oxygen towards the wedge-shaped rock that will become Camp 5. Now climbing at the cruising altitude of a commercial jet plane, they are well into the death zone.
But it's still pretty grim. Trying not to see where you're going sometimes. We've got Pete stood by on a telescope back at Tillman. Every time there's a gap in the cloud, he can see us from there. Tells us we're going in the right direction or not.
Could you just ever make sure we're on the right track? Because sometimes the visit is down to about 20-30 metres, mate, over.
From what I've seen so far, mate, between the clouds, you're looking really good, mate.
Excellent. I'll keep the radio on and look forward to speaking to you soon.
3 more hours of lung-bustingly hard work climbing up through the clouds, and Andy Nelson and Woody make it to 8,000 metres above sea level.
Okay, so looking across the north face to the Sherpas, in loading to Camp 5, where Woody and I have just arrived. Woody, hero that he is, sons oxygen, and as you can hear in the background, I have oxygen. Camp 5 consists of a big wedge-shaped rock and then bits and bobs of sort of pegs and detritus from previous expeditions, including old oxygen bottles. And just to finish off,
you're a star, mate.
2 warriors.
Now that Camp 5 has been established, all that lies between the army and glory is 850 vertical metres of the most terrifyingly high altitude climbing on the planet. Next time, the team tackle the most technically challenging section of the whole route.
Well, mate, racking up the big push.
Up the steep and avalanche-prone Hornbeam Couloir.
Good luck, John. We'll see you at the top in the morning about 9 or 10 o'clock.
But as they climb to the top, there's trouble.
Tillman's.